Let me say this slowly. This man reads 200 books a year. No quotes, not summaries. So the real question isn't how, it's what does that actually do to your mind and your money? Our guest today is Achumboro Ataande, an entrepreneur, a leader, investor, and thinker who uses reading as a weapon, not a hobby. We break down the books that changed his life, how reading sharpened his decision-making, his journey to impact 1 billion people, and why most people read but stay broke. He explains how knowledge compounds, how he runs businesses in the USA and Africa, investing in startups, and so much more. If you want sharper thinking, better money decisions, and an unfair advantage in life and business, this episode is for you. Let's get into it.
Achumboro Ataande.
Wonderful.
Welcome to MOD podcast. So, you're wearing so many hats. You are an entrepreneur, you are a lawyer, you are an investor. So, which one came first?
That's a great question. Pleasure to be here with you, Musa. It was great to meet you several years ago, and thank you for showing me around Dar es Salaam and Tanzania.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you've done, and I'm happy to reconnect with you, and congrats on the success of the podcast.
Thank you.
That's an easy question and a hard question. I'm going to give a roundabout answer first. First, I think everybody's an investor.
Okay.
And what do I mean by that? An investor is somebody who trades X for Y.
Okay.
Right? And everybody's trading their time for something. Everybody's trading their money for something. Now the question is, are we good or bad investors? But really, from a young age, we're all investors. So I think that always comes first.
Yeah.
Secondly, what actually happened, I don't talk much about this, but I started a company when I was in university.
Okay.
So my idea at that point was, this was back in 2007, 2008. And a lot of people in my generation, the millennials, I believe we like reading, but we didn't like the way the news was presented.
Okay.
So I tried to make fill it with more graphics, pictures, photos, media, and then make the stories a bit shorter, more concise. Because we read a lot. We read Facebook statuses. We did AOL. We did a lot of reading. We just didn't like traditional news. Okay. So my idea behind that was, let me recreate the news into a format that people would enjoy. Didn't end up making money from it. We grew it. We grew rather rapidly, but didn't end up making much money. But that was my first foray into entrepreneurship. And then I said, okay, there was something happened where I brought in somebody who betrayed me, stabbed me in the back. And I said, this will never happen to me again. And that's why I became a lawyer.
So you became a lawyer so that you can sue the guy?
No. I could have sued the guy without becoming a lawyer. My thing is, I didn't want somebody to take advantage of me.
Okay.
Or make the same mistake. My issue is I didn't create a contract with the guy.
Okay.
Right? Because for me, my word is my bond. I don't need a contract with people to keep my word. I usually go above and beyond the contract. But that's not typical human behavior. So I had to learn to reframe the way I think and say, you know what, it's not his fault, it's my fault. Mm-hmm. I didn't do the right procedures, I didn't create the right structures, I didn't have the right systems in place to make sure things went well. Or if things went wrong, I know how to handle that. So that's the reason I became an attorney, because I never wanted that to happen to me or anybody I cared about again.
Like that was your first business contract that you made by words, right?
yes, that I made by words, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you handle contracts right now?
So I tell everybody, the least I want whenever I agree upon anything or whenever we agree upon is to send what we agreed upon in writing. Okay. Because even if we both have good intentions, one of the things we learn in law school, especially about business, people forget. People forget. So they may say one thing and they forgot they said it. So at least anything, even recently I did a deal with my old business partner. Yeah. And I had a reminder, hey, send me what I promised you in writing. And I could just say a quick verbal yes before we go to contract stage. Yeah. Because the contract may take a bit of time to develop, but let's at least have written out the particulars, how much money I'm supposed to pay you, when I'm supposed to pay it to you, what are you supposed to do? So then when we're drafting out the contract, we already know what we agreed upon.
Okay.
Right? So that's a big thing I say for everyone. Even if you don't have I always say have an attorney, but if I know it's expensive, if you can't afford one, if you just at least, whether it's a text message or an email, this is not legal advice. Just always have to say. Yeah. But whether it's a text message or email, just write out, okay, this is exactly what we agreed, this is what you'll get paid, or this is the percentage, this is when it'll happen, and this is what will happen if things go wrong.
Okay.
So you both can say, hey, this is what we wrote down, this is what we agreed to. That's not necessarily a full-blown contract, but at least there's not going to be an argument about certain facts.
I believe even if your friends or your relatives or you came back like far away together, you must have a written agreement. I'm a Muslim, and we were taught that whenever you agree with someone, you must write it down. Like that's like the teaching from the Prophet. I remember one guy also went behind my back. We agreed to start a business and do everything together. We agreed everything by mouth, and then the moment that I wrote all those things down and I told him, okay, hey man, this is what we agreed, and he was like, no, I don't want this business anymore. So it means sometimes people will speak, but then they will be lying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was a misfortune when you start your business. So I'm sure we go through a lot of failures. So what's your most significant failure when you started a business, and how did you come back out of that?
Well, one, congrats to you for coming out of that. That's can be a lot of emotional turmoil when you go through something like that with someone you think you're setting up. It's good that you presented it at that point, and you can see, I don't want to say somebody, I never like to speak bad about some, but see somebody's reaction, because the reaction would have been much worse later on.
Yeah.
So you did capture that early, which is good. One of my worst experiences in business was actually my second startup, which I typically call my first one. But my second one, which I started this company, the goal was to connect skill-based volunteers. Actually, I'll take you back. I'll explain the story a bit. So I went to law school. I went to Vanderbilt, which is an amazing law school in the U.S. And during my last year of law school, my goal going to law school was to I wanted to go work at a very large company. I practice international mergers and acquisitions. That's the buying and selling of companies or assets internationally. And because that's the end game for most companies, right? That's where you know you're at the top. And coming from where I came from, me and my mother and dad, we moved to the U.S. So I moved there when I was 3, didn't have connections, didn't have like political power or business power or whatnot. My goal was to get connections, capabilities, and capital, right? And being at the top, being the attorneys that the CEO and the board, we have to talk to, if you want to do an M&A, we have to be working with you tightly. So there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of honor, and there's a lot of money. So I figured, let me do that for a few years, increase my capital base, and then go out and start a business. Long story short, I was supposed to work for the global head, the Latin America head of mergers and acquisitions for Scanner Ops, which is one of the best M&A firms in the world. I know I'm going roundabout, but just hold on for a moment. And unfortunately, that was in Brazil. I was studying abroad in Brazil for my law school. I was studying at the business and law school down there. And I didn't have a work visa, so I couldn't actually go pursue that opportunity. And that's because I was going to work for the top guy. And but I couldn't because I didn't have a work visa. So I said, okay, let me volunteer my skills. When Brazil, which by many counts was a third world nation, and let me go volunteer. But I don't want to push chairs or set up things. I want to volunteer as an attorney.
Okay.
Me and another friend who was working for White & Case, which is another top law firm, we couldn't find an opportunity to volunteer in Brazil, which clearly it's needed. Right, so if I can get a job at the best, one of the top 2 law firms in the world, but I can't volunteer for free, that's an issue. So I decided to create a social enterprise called OurCom, and the goal was to connect nonprofits to skill-based volunteers all around the world. So that was my second business. Long story short, I was dating a girl at that time, very serious relationship.
Okay.
But making no money. So instead of going and doing law after law school, I was running this business from the time essentially I couldn't go through with the hiring. Making no money, and she ended up ending the relationship with me. And that broke me in many stances. And it was then I also realized, hey, the business is not working.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nonprofits don't want to pay for skill-based volunteers.
Yeah.
No matter if I'm selling an opportunity, get somebody who'll do $2,000 of work for $50. Nonprofits just didn't want to pay for that.
Okay.
So I picked a bad business model. I didn't understand what was actually a market driver in that. So as a low point, I'm out of law school. I've made about $1,500 in a year and a half. Most of that's my own money because I put my own money in there. So I really paid myself $1,500
From the business, right?
From the business. Okay. And I'm living with my mom. My mom's looking at me because she's like, you went to law school and where your friends are making $160,000, you're out here making $1,500 right, for the whole year. You can't even afford the train for the bus. And it was just a point where this is the benefit of being in New York City. Got to a point where, and I'm not a crier, where I would cry on the train going back because I didn't know what I was going to do.
Okay.
Crying the train going back. At that point, I realized, let me go get my license. I went, took the bar. Thank God, passed with flying colors on the first try. And then I went and started practicing law to regain capital. Right?
Okay.
Regain capital, figure things out.
So you went to get employed first, right?
Exactly. I went to get a job. Got a job. That can be a whole nother discussion, but went to get a job, make some money, and then I went back out into entrepreneurship eventually.
You went to get a job, not because you wanted the job, because you wanted capital to pursue your own business.
Yes.
Okay. So what has been the best for you, like when you're working a job or when you're pursuing entrepreneurship?
It's entrepreneurship, but that comes with its highs and lows, right?
Yeah.
There's great ecstasy, and then there's also great pain, right? Running a business, and that is something everybody out there should know. It's not this romanticized version of whatever you see on Instagram, this sudden success. That is not entrepreneurship. Most people are grinding for years, figuring it out, having great periods and then very low periods. So my thing is, I love running a business, not just because of the money, but I'm able to impact so many lives. Like I see the letters and notes so I travel sometimes to meet my employees because I have employees around the world. And I am a very direct boss. I don't talk behind people's back, but I hold people accountable. So I tell them to their face. And sometimes you wonder whether people truly get it and they know you care for them. But at this point, this team in particular, which I've been I've had to be very strict with because we were trying to change the culture. Some of the people came up and asked me to hug me. Okay. And that's when you're like, they're getting it. They understand what you're trying to do. And then also you see people are able to take care of their families. They're having money. You see people buying cars. And there's almost no feeling like being able to help people help themselves. And that's hard to do as an employee of somebody else, unless you're in like a manager supervisor position. But that's something you can do as an entrepreneur.
Most people believe that if you have a job, you are secured, like your future is secured. So I've never had a job, so I can't really relate, but you have had a job, you have been an entrepreneur, and also you have been a boss, which means you have employed other people. So is a job really a security?
I don't believe there's any security in life, to a certain extent, right? There's very few times where you truly exit and you're secure. Let's say, how are you probably secure in Tanzania? If you have maybe 100 million Tanzanian shillings, then you might be secure for life to some extent, notwithstanding political pressure, right? I don't believe, because you can always get fired from your job. I believe everybody, regardless whether they have a job or everybody's a CEO. And what do I mean? You are the CEO of you. Right? You're the CEO of yourself. So if you're running a business, if you're working for somebody, always think as a CEO. Are you training yourself? Are you upskilling? Right? Are you becoming better? Are you making good decisions with your money? And the people who I've promoted the most are people that I see do things that a CEO would do or an entrepreneur or a founder would do. I see they're drivers. They take initiative. They treat my money like it's their money. right? And those are the people I want to put in positions of power. So I don't believe in job security. I don't think I'm secure. CEOs, we get fired the most because people quit, clients fire us, etc. We get fired the most. So I just don't believe in job security. I'm a big believer in you have to constantly work. You have to make really good decisions, and then you just have to pray at the end of the day.
There's a saying that says, the more you learn, the more you earn. I think you are really living that saying. You once said that you read at least 200 books per year. So my question is, how does someone read 200 books per year?
So that came out of realizing how much I lacked, right, and where I wanted to go. So my goal in life now that God has put on my heart is I truly want to impact 1 billion lives. I ran away for that for a while, kind of like Jonah and the whale, right? I ran away from that. I was like, God, that's too big a number. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like, you can say, hey, I want to be a billionaire. I want to do, but how do you dramatically impact 1 billion lives? And one of the things that I learned after failing my first business and also my second one was I did not know enough. And mind you, I went to law school and I also audited business school.
Okay.
So I audited an MBA, meaning I took all the classes. I didn't have to pay, but then I don't have the actual diploma, but I wanted the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I did not know enough. So I said, I have to start reading because where I want to go in life, I need to know things. And it started off with reading 50 books. This is while I was employed. I did Audible, so I would listen to the books, right? I would listen, and everybody has to find the best method of learning. There's a great book, two great books I read at the beginning when I started. One is called Ultra Learning, and another one is by Jim Quick. It's another learning book. I'm forgetting the name of it. It's one of the first 50 or 100 books I read, and it showed me there's some people who really take in a mass amount of knowledge and they do it quickly, and then that changes the trajectory of their lives. So I started trying to create a plan, all right, listening. Most people think I'm listening to music, but I'm actually listening to books when I have my AirPods in, and some books I physically read. And finding out what's your best mode of learning. Some people's not listening, some people's reading. So sometimes I read in the sunlight with the book pages turned to sun because I realize I read 50 to 100% faster when I do that. So you find kind of shortcuts, reading very early in the morning because your brain is clear and you're able to absorb information much faster. So it really was for me to find an edge and to become great at what I do. And that, I think, has helped me solve a lot of problems without big blunders.
There's one guy, he's an entrepreneur. His name is Ty Lopez.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to read like one book per day. So my question is, I was wondering, like, what process do you use to be that quick? Like, let's say a book is 300 pages.
Yeah.
Like, how do you cover that book, let's say in 2 days? How do you do it?
Oh, man, there's so many principles that you stack to become faster. One is learning what time do you read faster at. So that's one of my things I learned very early in the morning, 4 to 5 a.m. There's a principle called I call it the power principle. I'm actually forgetting the name of it. But it essentially is golden hour. It's called the golden hour. There's a point in time for everybody during the day where you operate at 2 to 5x speed.
Okay.
Right? It's called the golden hour principle. So in that hour or 2 hours, some people's 3 hours long during the day, you're actually way more efficient than any other time period in it. So if you put your most important task, for me, that was reading, during that time period, I can read 2x to 5x. My speed, I found out, is more around 4x than I would any other period of the day. So I would stack that into that time period. Then I found that the process or the way that I learned best with reading this many books was listening, because I just have to read so much. Actually, physically reading, I'm not going to get to 200 books. So finding out the mode of learning you learn best. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is just setting up a discipline and time block. So, okay, I'm going to do consistently this time, and this time, and going with it. And finally, the fourth principle, and this is real, just start, right? Every time you start something, you get slightly better over time, right? So you learn another secret and another secret and another secret and another secret. So I didn't start off reading 200. My first goal was 100 books in a year. And I thought that was a stretch. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, wait, I can do more than that. And so then I said 200. And I said, oh, wow, I actually did that with some spare time. And then I went to 300. And 300 was a push because sometimes I wasn't as disciplined, but I was able to hit that number. And then finally, I found my sweet spot is more 200, maybe 150. And so that's what I'm going to aim for going forward, because when you're reading that much, then it kind of cuts into your time that you have to execute. So I would allocate about 2 hours a day for myself and do that very early in the morning to read.
And what's the one book that completely changed your mindset about life, and why?
There's so many books that have changed my mindset. A recent book that changed my life is called Super Intelligence. So we're dealing with AI, and I'm trying to figure out for my investments and also for my companies, what is going to value propositions are changing, because it's become a lot cheaper for you to access knowledge, especially expert knowledge. And my worry always was like robots. Robots are going to kill us, right? And one of the frames that Super Intelligence reminded me, it said, hey, in the wild, the reason why humans dominate is not because we're not physically stronger than lions, and definitely not more strong than gorillas. It's because of our intelligence. We're able to manipulate things, create tools, etc. So it's not actually about our physical strength, it's about our brain power and our intelligence. And so my worries really shouldn't be about robots, because it can be this little docile, stuck in a box AI that can actually harm me more, because it can convince other people to do other things. And I'm not saying AI is bad or AI is good, but that was a big frame that changed for me, because that was something key on my mindset. But the real book, my mom has been having me read this for the last, this is one, she's had me read this from childhood. It's the Book of Proverbs. Book of Proverbs. So I read a chapter every single day. And that every single good business principle that I've ever found comes from the Book of Proverbs. It may be expanded and they dive deeper into it a little bit, but I haven't seen anything that's groundbreaking knowledge. I'm like, this is a lifetime principle that I have not found in the Book of Proverbs. So I'll say the Book of Proverbs. And finally, I'll say one of the first books I read was the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And it was just about really thinking big. If you can think about doubling, just think about 10Xing it, right? Think about 10Xing it. You might as well go for it. The work is really the same, either way. The work is the same. So you might as well go big. So that's a book that I'll recommend to the audience. It was one of the first books I read, and it's powerful.
We do have a lot of people who are watching us, and most of them, they're young. I would say 50% are from the ages of 18 to 30 years old. So why are they watching MOD podcast? As the name itself, it says, Make Your Own Destiny podcast. So they come to our podcast to learn about business, about making their own destinies, by listening to people, others like you, who you're also pursuing your own journey to make your own destiny. I'm sure you've made a lot of mistakes when you are in your 20s, in your teens. So if today you are talking to your younger self, let's say 20-year-old Achumboro, what advice would you give that younger version of you about whether it's about life, business, or entrepreneurship?
That's a phenomenal question, sir. So my first thing and my biggest problem, I think that was my failure in my second business, is humility.
Okay.
Humility. So being able to show that you have flaws, right? Being able to ask for help. I think oftentimes, and I'm not saying beg, I'm saying ask for, say, hey, I don't know this. Can you show me how to do it? Sometimes that means even going to a competitor. Yeah. I saw when I walked in, you have a Mamba mentality billboard here. And one of the things that people may know or may not know about Kobe Bryant was he would ask his competitors, hey, how'd you do this move? Can you teach me this? He did that to Reggie Miller. He taught that, and Reggie, I believe that was the first team they beat when they won their first championship, Kobe and Shaq. He said, oh, can you show me? And so Reggie showed him, and those are the moves that Kobe used on him in the finals to win. Right? And he did that with Michael. Him and Michael Jordan were very close. He would ask Michael all these questions, and he wanted to catch Michael. He wanted to beat Michael, but he still was humble enough to go ask people, hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And I think that is something that was missing from me. And being able to do that going forward, it's that just having that humility to ask people, especially people agree, hey, how'd you do this? Can I follow you and shadow you? The second major thing that I would say, which I did but I'll say that everybody should do, because this has gotten me far and I'm continuing to do this. Go work for somebody great for free.
Okay.
Somebody great for free, or somebody building something for free, right? It's going to teach you how to build. You're going to learn, you're going to get trained. You're going to get opportunities you otherwise wouldn't get if you were being paid, right? Go work for them for free as if you're being paid the top flight money, because it's going to put you in places that you otherwise wouldn't. Whoever's the top person in Tanzania, go ask them, hey, can I intern for you? Can I work for free for this amount of period? I know money's tight, do it. It's going to change your life, especially 18 to 30-year-olds in Africa. The level of unemployment, right? This is the way you get your foot in the door, right? This is how you meet people. This is how you get introductions. So go work for free. Do it very early. Do it often. And even if after you get a job, continue doing more than what you're paid for. That's how people remember you. That's how people want to keep you around. Do more than what you're paid for. And that's how I try to show up early. I try to give more value than I'm paid for. And I try to do things for free when I think I'm going to learn something, gain a connection, etc.
I would just like to emphasize on that when you want to go and work for someone for free, you have to make sure first you have a skill that person needs. Yeah, because otherwise, like, no one would let you in, right? Yeah, so you need to have value first in yourself. Okay, let's say you want to come and learn about podcasting. At least, you should know maybe how to hold a camera or how to do sound engineering. Then I can say, okay, you can come, you can intern here. At first, you need to have value, some kind of value that you would give so that you can be let in through that door. You have been doing business in the US and in Africa. There are people who are watching from the US who really wishes to have businesses in Africa. So since you have done it all, what are the disadvantages of doing business in the US and in Africa?
That's another great question. So the advantage of doing business in the US is, I think, one, it's easier to scale. We don't have $1 trillion companies in Africa yet, right?
Yeah, true.
We don't have $1 trillion. So that's one of the things. Two, capital is much easier to access. So it's easier to get a loan for lower interest rates in the US. Three, there's better infrastructure, right? It's much easier to get your people to go from one location to another location. It's easier to work across states, ship things to other countries, etc. Those are the three major benefits, I'll say, working in doing business in the US. Now, doing business in Africa, if you come from the US side and you want to do business in Africa, much less startup cost, right? Because you're dealing with dollars and you're transferring it to whatever the local currency is. So it's much cheaper to start here. Two, I think the people, and hopefully I don't get eviscerated for this, I just think the people in Africa are willing to work harder, just on average, much harder on average than people in the US or other developed countries. Why people want to work, etc. Third, I think there's in some ways more easy opportunities. What do I mean by that? You see, even for locals, you see there's many things that are broken, whether it's infrastructure, whether it is logistics, whether it is just the state of certain buildings, etc. There's a lot of easier fixes or state of hospitals here. The question is there enough money there to actually go and run a business or create a business model around? But there's a lot of simpler problems to fix, right? Africa doesn't need, in my opinion, dating apps. Right? So US, you build it, trying to build the next fancy. There's a lot of simple solutions that Africa needs. It's just figuring out the business model and payment cycles in order to make that work.
What really made you outsource your business operations to Africa?
So I was born in Ghana, even though I was raised in the US, but I was born in Ghana, and I've always had a heart for Africa. I don't like to see problems and complain about it without creating a solution.
Okay.
Right? I know even in the US, it was very hard for me to get a job. And I was top of my class many times. So it was very hard for me to get a job. So once I had the opportunity and I saw people I thought had talent, I was like, they can learn this. Right? It took more work than I realized it would take to get them to learn this. But they can learn this. We just have to set up systems and processes and training programs, etc. And seeing that, right? Seeing people being able to take care of their families, seeing people, as I said before, being able to buy cars, seeing, hopefully in the future, communities change by setting that up. There's no better feeling, right, than helping your homeland. And in many ways, I have multiple homelands, right? And helping your homeland, and that's what made me bullish on Africa. And I can't wait to see. I'm on my way to meet some people and meet part of my team, and also say, I think in a few years, I'm going to tell them, I think in a few years, some of you will be making at least 10 million Tanzanian shillings per month. Okay. And some of you otherwise will start making, in maybe 7 years, you'll start making well over 100 million Tanzanian shillings, but you have to upskill. And it may not be the people on the team, it might be other people, because we have lots of talent. The thing that I found, mostly, it's everywhere. Let me not say Africa, because I hire people in the Philippines, I hire people in India, I hire people in Latin America, I hire people across the US. I've hired people in Canada, not much Europe, but those, India, Pakistan. Just, it's a professionalism that you have to show them, okay, this is how you send an email, this is how you respond, this is timeliness, this is how you present yourself. There's that, and then some of the hard skills. But thankfully now it's becoming easier to train people. So I have about 4 subscriptions that I pay for, that other than the trainings we do in-house, and we pay for Udemy. So I think that's really good for teaching, that people can learn how to become a podcast engineer and come in and intern for you, right? Yeah. Udemy, Coursera. Coursera, I believe, is free for the most part, so you can do that. You just won't get a degree. Coursera is a great one. I'm forgetting one more. Google does some stuff. MIT does some stuff, but also Duolingo, because some of the issues is English speaking, right? So I have subscriptions that I give my team access to and I pay for, and they also have a catalog of my 1,200 plus books that they can listen to, read, etc. And I buy books too that they can read. So it's become easier to upskill now than it was in the past. And I think this is a question for later. My concern now is 2 things. One is Africa the future, or is Africa the future? And what I mean by that is there's so much promise, history, and potential in Africa, from resources to people willing to work. We have brilliant people. I know I'm going on for a bit. We have brilliant people. The places, even after reading, the places I felt the most uneducated have been here around round tables or dinner tables with African elders, where they're just sharing things that I had no idea of, whether it's history, whether it's principles of now, just the wisdom that is here, the wisdom, knowledge, information. You'll just say, wow, these guys are brilliant. So that's one aspect of, wow, there's so much. But then there's the other aspect which I worry about with AI is the future Africa, where 50%, 60% unemployment, people scraping by, infrastructure crumbling. So we really have, I think either way the future is Africa. Hopefully, I hope it's the former rather than the latter.
What's the most reliable place to hire people for you so far? US or Africa? Because I had some American friends. They used to tell me that they do hire in the Philippines because they get cheap labor, and it's capitalism. So even though you're getting cheap labor, if they are efficient, then that's what you want for your business, right? So for you, what has been the most reliable?
So that's a really good question. I'll say I've hired well over 100 people over the last few years. I've hired well over, not all 100 people are still with me, but I've hired well over 100 people over the last few years. I've learned many things across. One of the big things, yes, it's capital, but also culture. Okay. So I'm not going to point out any countries in particular, but there's some great books about culture, because different countries and different cultures pride themselves on different things. So I'm very direct. I like to be very straightforward with people. Some cultures are more relational. So they don't want you to be direct. It's like, oh, the relationship matters more than the business, right? And I'm like, no, we need to make sure the business is good, because then it's going to be very hard. I've had no money before. I know that pain. I don't want to go back to that pain. And I've seen in certain cultures around the world, it's hard for me to hire from that, because there's just a culture clash. I want to be direct with you, and I want to focus on the business. I still have phenomenal relationships with my people, but they have to understand it's not personal. And some cultures take it very personal if you're saying, hey, this and this is wrong. You're not showing up right. You're not. You made this big mistake, and that's an issue. So I wouldn't say U.S. versus Africa. You have different pockets of things too. Like, for example, in Tanzania, something that I had to do with certain people, it's like we had to get out pole pole. I'm not pole pole, right? Yeah. So it's like, no, we go fast, we arrive early, we do things well, we go above and beyond, and we're very, and some cultures, some people will accept that cultural change, some others will say no to that. So that's what I know. I'm talking around the problem a bit, but what I'll say from Africans work very hard. Very hard, most of them. I'm not saying all, most of them work very hard. Some Asian cultures, some work very hard, others don't want to work more than 30 hours, 35 hours. That's full time to them. I'm an 80 hours type of person. My team might not work 80 hours, but I like people who want to work 50, 60 hours, and you get paid accordingly, but that's how we move fast. Right, so it's understanding. In the U.S., some people will only work 30, 35 hours. They don't really want to work a real 40 hours. But there's some people in the U.S. who work 90, 100 hours. So it's more finding your pockets and finding people with the right mindset to bring onto your team. And thankfully, now that we have a global world, you can look to the whole globe for most of the stuff.
So I have a Turkish friend who came to Tanzania, and he was looking for employees. What he told me was, hey Musa, I only need someone who is trustworthy. Just that. Everything else, I can teach them. I just need to be able to trust the person with my life before I hire them. So I was wondering, what does it take for you to hire someone that you don't even know, especially here in Tanzania?
It's that trust. Right, I think my first employee came from a connection via you, right? And it's seeing and watching somebody. And one of the things I saw with her is we gave her some money to buy something, and she'd always come back with the correct change, right? With the correct change. So you see, there's something I like to do called micro tests, and at that time I wasn't doing that. But you'll see how are people interacting with certain little things you give them, right? And then from there, typically trustworthy people know trustworthy people, right? So then you say, okay, from that, who's somebody you really trust? Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong. But trying to find people who are, I completely agree with, who are trustworthy and then loyal. Trustworthy, loyal, and then build up the skills. So can I trust you with sensitive client information? Can I trust you with my sensitive information, right? And then are you loyal? Because if I'm pouring into you, are you just going to take what I poured into you and go somewhere else? Because that's frustrating also. So seeing that they have those two characteristics, then I think the skills, as long as they're willing to work hard, people can learn 80 to 90% of most skills.
So you also once said that you pay people who are passionate about something. So my question is, how do you test someone's passion? How do you know that this person is passionate before you start paying them?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. So I think that's a double-edged sword. What I mean by that is, so with passion, right? You give them tests to see if they're willing to do more than what's inside their job description.
Okay.
Right. So we promoted a few people to become leaders, and the way I do leadership first is you don't necessarily get paid for being on the leadership training or leadership program first.
Yeah.
Right. So you you go through, we're seeing, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to make sacrifices? Are you doing outside? Are you coming in early, staying late? That's what leaders have to do.
Okay.
Right? And most of the time leaders were not paid for that on the front end, we're paid on the back end.
Okay.
So I'm seeing that passion. Do people, are they taking hold of advantages? So as I said, there's four subscriptions we have that I have company-wide for people. Who's reading? Who's studying it? Who's taking the courses? Do I have to be on top of you? Do you really want to become good at this? Or are you just saying it for me? Because actions, to me, I don't listen to words much. I just watch what you do.
Okay.
And I see the updates. Are you doing, okay, this person's not really passionate. They're only going to go so far. But why I say passion is a double-edged sword, because to keep passionate people, you have to reward them. So for the people who became leaders, they're making double or triple what they were making before. They didn't get it on the front end, but I was just told we did payroll, what's today? Tuesday? We did payroll yesterday, and I always look, I smile when I see people. It's like, oh wow, you made a lot of money. You made a money. So you made, and they're smiling like, yes, we did too. So it's to keep passionate people, you have to be able to reward them. And some people's not money, some people's advancement, some people's promotion, some people it's doing something. Some people, like some of my people love it that I just sit down and talk with them, not about work. So you have to find the languages of the love languages of the workplace for your people, right? So how do your people want to be loved? How do they want to be affirmed? And so sometimes for me, it's just sitting for 20, 30 minutes, listening to somebody. And people know I'm very about business. So just listening about your problems, listening about your day, talking through about nothing that has to do with business with you. So understanding that and being able to do that, provide opportunities and show people the potential. That's what helps you keep passionate people.
You know, managing employees is very difficult. For example, you might be here in Tanzania, like geographically, you work in an office, but it's still very difficult to manage employees. You must have a human resource team, security to make sure everyone is coming in on time, but you are doing it from the US. So I'm wondering, like, how do you do it?
So that's a phenomenal question. And I'm giving answers, but really everything is from God, right? I'm Christian, you're Muslim, but we understand this concept, right? We understand God gives us everything, right? And so it's His favor, His grace, etc. What I'll say with managing teams, I call there's people and then there's structure. So I wasn't good at operations, and that was a big limit to my business. I can never get over certain dollar figures, because if you're not good at operations, you can't really build structures, you can't really scale. It depends on you. So if you're not working or you're not managing something, it's not going to keep going up. It's going to start teetering down. Then I hired one person who came in and helped me fix some operations, then hired another person who was more operations minded too. And we started creating systems in place. And then finally, I became pretty good at developing operations myself. And so I'm thinking, okay, what structures do we need in place? So when I say people, at some point in your business, it's time to hire managers or leaders, right? I differentiate managers and leaders a little bit. Manager should be a leader, but I think a leader is a bit more than a manager. So at this, okay, are we working to a point where we have enough money where now we can have a manager whose job isn't to actually serve clients, but it's to make sure our people are serving clients correctly, right? So having somebody on the ground in different spaces. Also structure, I have check-ins. So people are supposed to sign in at a certain time virtually. People are supposed to send messages in and out. And we tie people's adherence to that to incentives. Right, to incentives. So you do this, you get this. You don't do this, you get this, right? And then also, unfortunately, it's letting people go, right? Sometimes people don't get it until they see somebody got fired for not adhering to this, right? But not just letting people go, giving bonuses to people who do good things that you like, because then they're like, you know what? They're not just trying to punish us. They really enjoy this behavior. I'm going to strive for this because I know I'm going to get richly rewarded for that.
Let's say you have a worker who is very passionate, but they are underperforming at work. How do you handle that? Do you fire them immediately? Like, how do you do it?
So the way we handle it, we have a feedback system. Okay. So typically we line out everything you need to do to stay in the company, get bonuses, what happens if you don't do certain things, and what will happen that leads to being fired. So what leads to being fired is typically, I'll just call it a strike rule. So it's typically 3 strikes and you're fired. So there's an offense. If the offense is of a certain caliber, it counts as 1 or 2 strikes. Some offenses count as 3 strikes. Let's say fraud, stealing, etc. You're automatically kicked out the company. But that doesn't apply in this case. So if somebody's underperforming, so 1 strike, what we're going to do is we're going to give them write-up. I'll have either a manager, a supervisor. So a supervisor in my company is under the manager. Manager, a supervisor, or even myself will have a conversation with the person, especially if they're very passionate or we see promise in them. Hey, this is what you need to do to get better. We need you to do this in this timeline. If not, it's going to be hard to. Then maybe they got better, but not enough. It's a 2nd strike, and then by the 3rd strike, they're out if they didn't improve. What we also would do is kind of give them the playbook on how they can get better. It's happened in the past where I've had to fire 2 people that were quote unquote passionate, but they weren't performing. Both people actually were able to come back for that because the other people on the team, I told them, hey, this is what you can go out. I'm not going to pay you to continue getting better if you're underperforming. If you're really passionate about it, go get better, and then we'll reevaluate you and bring you back in team. If you're doing the right things, then I have no problem bringing somebody back, right? If you left the right way, it's just you didn't have the skill set, go train up yourself and then come back. And if you do have the skill set, then we'll look at you again. And both people, they acquired the skill set and they were able to come back. So my viewpoint is have very clear guidelines, give people the opportunity to improve. But if they don't, you do have to let them go, because at the end of the day, as a CEO, one of your main jobs is to allocate capital, right? To choose how you're spending money. And if you're putting money in the wrong places, then you're risking the health of the business, right? So my time, if I'm firing somebody, it doesn't mean that I'm going out and pocketing the money. Now I'm putting that money to research and development. I'm putting that money to maybe hiring a different employee that's doing better. And we've seen that the caliber of people we've hired has gotten much better over time because we just have that in place. And when the people get hired now, everybody's more excited to come to work because people like working with other smart people. Right? Smart people enjoy that. I mean, let me say, smart people, driven people like working with other smart and driven people.
If you have smart people in your company, there are other companies that will be praying for them, like with good offers, with better, let's say, greener pastures. So how do you keep them loyal to your company and to make sure that they don't leave?
That's a phenomenal question. So loyalty is hard to attain, but I think there's certain things that help people stay loyal. So I'm going to talk to loyalty part and then the greener pastures part after. So things that I think that help people stay loyal, showing that you're sacrificing for them.
Okay.
Right? Showing that you're sacrificing. So if they know, hey, my boss is actually taking less money, they are risking things on our end, they're showing up for when I need them. And how does that show up on my end? So let's say for some reason things are low. Nobody has ever been fired from one of my companies for if they're performing well and we just are in a down period. So there was a period where we're down period for 3 or 4 months, meaning I was losing money every single month.
Okay.
I still kept everybody employed. I say, okay, we're going, everybody gets essentially half time. And what I want you to do during that half time is improve your skill, right? So let's say we're paying them for 40 hours. That means they get paid for 20 hours. What I want you to do during that time is study and stay ready. Keep sharpening your tool set. So they know I'm paying them. I'm not getting any money from paying them. I don't know when things are going to come. And that happened for 3-4 months. And people see, wait, this is a different company.
Yeah.
This is somebody that cares for us, because you may go outside somewhere and then once things go bad, you're gone. You're gone. So that's one thing. Showing up, realizing what people actually care about, knowing your people, talking with your people, having that flow, people enjoying, giving them opportunities to grow. People enjoy that. Now, regarding the greener pastures, because at some point, money is going to make almost anybody move.
Yeah.
You have to be radically making sure your business is growing, making sure you're creating bigger opportunities. So that's why I say that 10 million Tanzanian shilling number, right? For my people in Tanzania, for my people in the Philippines is something different. For my people in Latin America is something different. How can I push? Like, we're 4 or 5 years away from that number, but how can I push as hard as possible? Because I know very few people can compete with that 10 million Tanzanian number. So if I'm pushing and I'm pushing towards that number, I'm making sure my pastures are always greener. So then I choose who comes in and comes out, right? So that's the thing. It's somebody's always, business is war. My old business partner, Julius Karen, used to say, business is war. And so you have to understand in war, you have to keep as much storage of materials. You need to know how to attack, you need to know how to defend, and not pretend like it's all Hakuna Matata. Right?
Yeah. So far, do you have any employee that's earning 10 million Tanzania shillings?
Not in Tanzania. Yes, I do.
In Tanzania, 10 million is a lot, because even doctors and at entry level is less than 1 million. Yeah.
So I don't want to say too much about how much my employees are, but all of my employees are earning over 1 million Tanzanian shillings. In Tanzania, I believe all of my employees are earning over 1 million Tanzanian shillings. Some are much more than that, but my goal is to keep on pushing. So as I said, I don't want to have to compete with people being able to take away my employees, right? Because I'm pouring so much into them.
Talking about money, I remember when you were starting to have employees here in Tanzania, you asked me one day, like, what method should I use to pay them? Right? that was the challenge back then.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to know, how have you managed to do those cross-border payments? Because as we know, in Tanzania, the infrastructure is not that good.
Yeah, it's as I said, I'm not going to call out any governments or anything, but yeah, it's a huge problem paying people in Africa, especially business pay. Remittances are easy. Like sending remittances, they're easy, but even with that, sometimes they flag your accounts. So first we were doing remittances, but I also realized I don't want things tied directly to my bank account. Okay. Because if somebody steals from it, that shuts down the whole operation across the whole world. Okay. So we had to find several different ways to pay people, or we had to create several loops. Long story short, for those of you online who are watching this, one of the issues is there are certain countries that are redlined across Africa. A lot of African countries are redlined. So it's very difficult to send money in from a U.S. bank because it becomes an issue. You have to file papers, especially if you're sending a lot of money. There's red lines around terrorism, corruption, etc. It's just tough to send money. So finally, what we came up with two iterations. One of the ones that worked was PayPal transfer to one of my employees, or PayPal payment to one of my employees in the Philippines, who I really trusted because I was sending them a lot of money, right? Yeah. And then they would wire it directly into Tanzanian bank accounts, right? And that you need somebody with high levels of trust if you're doing that. Then the second thing but we're always looking for a better process, because after a while, PayPal's like, hey, too much money's coming through, right? What's going on here? We had to increase the limits and whatnot. Then we found more recently, there was a guy that I hired from South Africa, and he found another app called Payoneer. Payoneer. And what we do is I am sent, somebody requests an invoice there. Sent that connects to now one of the people on the ground in the whatever country I'm paying towards. It connects with them. They're able to take the money and send it out to the rest of the employees there. And I try to make that process as transparent as possible, because, for example, right now, for some of my employees in Tanzania, a bank is holding 10 million shillings for the employees, right? And for a month. And they haven't released it to them, but because my people know that they know when I paid, and they know it's not in my hands anymore. And that's the unfortunate thing too. Sometimes when we figure out the hoops on our side, then we get here, and it's been several times where a bank here or process has held up money for other people. So
talking about banks freezing your funds, have you taken a look into crypto decentralization to combat that?
Yeah, I think crypto. So what would make this really easy? If somebody could create this, I think this would just blow things. Yeah. Make their way to purchase crypto using a credit card, because business owners, it'll just make them feel more secure, especially with crypto. Using a credit card, so you can charge a fee, whether it's to the recipient or to the payer. You can charge a fee, use a credit card, take that payment, transfer it to, as long as it can convert into Bitcoin, or I think a stable coin might be better for this because of fluctuations. Bitcoin, then the people can take it out on the ground and then they can remove their money. I think that'll be the fastest way to do things. It may, instead of what our payment process, the way we do typically takes 3 to 5 days, that can cut it down to, I think, 3 days. And people can get their money almost instantaneously. Now you don't have to worry about banks. After that, they may have to figure out converting to M-Pesa, but it also allows them now to be able to buy things around the world. Whether you utilizing Stripe or utilizing another payment processor, create a way for people to purchase crypto using their credit card or their bank. But I think people do much quicker if they were able to use their credit card. Create a stable coin that they can flip into Bitcoin. Then people can transfer that to their local currency or cash it out in their local currency, and it'll be seamless in many ways.
You are an angel investor as well, so you invest in startups in Africa. So what kind of startups are you mostly passionate about?
When I looked at investing, I was looking at companies that are non-sexy. What do I mean by that? A lot of people in Africa, they want to do fintech or they want to do something that just sounds cool. Which is great. Fintech has some of the best returns, but I don't think I have an edge in it. I'm thinking, what does Africa really need? That's how I'm looking at it. Health tech. So healthcare. Across the continent, we are behind in healthcare, whether it's the state of clinics to whether it's the systems. So healthcare, and we have such a blooming population that we really need to get this right. If hospitals are stressed at this point, imagine how stressed they'll be in 20, 25 years. So healthcare, logistics, the movement of people and goods, logistic tech. So look at how hard it is to commute from one side of Dar es Salaam to another side of Dar es Salaam, right? Think about if you're depending on shipping trucks, creating a new bus company, whatever. If you can't predictably know when your things will arrive or what will happen, that creates stress on your business. So if we can facilitate the movement of goods and people much better, you'll see a balloon in trade. So that's the second thing for me. Third, I used to do this. I don't do as much education tech. I have 2 ed tech companies. I don't think I'm going to invest in ed tech anymore. But just so we need to improve the education across the board, right? Fourth, what I'm still doing is real estate / construction tech. New people, young people, eventually when they get jobs, they're going to want to have a place to live, right? African culture is still okay to live with your parents, but I think eventually it's going to mimic European or US culture where people just want their own space and we don't have enough housing that they want, and they may not have the same taste as their parents, right? So they want something a little that matches more their vibe. So those are the major things I invest in. I really want to get into space tech. I'm not there yet. I don't truly understand it fully, but that's something that I also want to add to my portfolio.
How do you make sure your investment is secure? You being in the US and investing here in Africa.
So typically I don't invest in anything unless I met the founder, know their connections, or have a really strong referral. So a lot of my current investments in Africa comes through referrals or VCs. That means venture capitalists I know, other angels I know, entrepreneurs that I know that refer, hey, this real other entrepreneur, you should talk with them. We just got done doing, right after this, I have a call. We just got done doing a program called Angel Fair Africa. We brought that to New York City, where we brought some of the best startups from Africa to pitch to investors in the US. And that's one of the ways we wanted to introduce more people to invest in Africa. But that's also one of the ways that I get to know more startups and meet them and talk to them and see, okay, this CEO is really, really smart. I remember there was one CEO I invested in last year or a year and a half ago. And I met him in person. This guy's brilliant. I poured more money to him after that. I said, this guy's brilliant. So I think a lot of it is creating that relationship. It's just like with business, it's creating that relationship, having people who can vouch for the person, but you still make mistakes. There's about, I think, a $50,000 investment I made into a startup in Africa, which I'm just upset at myself at now. Because I didn't do enough due diligence, and I think that's almost all of it might be gone, just because I didn't really vet the person. And I think really when you're doing that, you have to truly vet the person, know them, know how they're going to perform in good times and bad, and that's also the issues that come with investing. You make business mistakes sometimes, and you learn.
And so far, what's the most profitable investment venture that you've made?
So I'm an angel investor. So angel investors, where I know 50,000 is a lot of money, right? I usually don't, right? That included a follow-on. I usually don't just go out and send $50,000. It's usually whether I start off at 5,000 or 10,000, and then I'll add on to it, or some stuff I start off much larger.
Yeah.
But usually when I'm investing at that, it's a lot of money, but there's people who write $500,000 checks. There's people who write $1 million checks. So really, I'm typically at the beginning stages of the business. When somebody is just about to find product market fit, meaning they're just about to find find the right combination to get people to buy their products or services, or they have already found that and they're looking to scale. So at that point in the business, in Africa specifically, it's going to take 10 to 16 years to really receive your investment back, and it's locked up.
10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not something I recommend for most people, just because the lockup, and it's so risky. It's really 1 out of 10 might do well, right? So that's the issue, and that if they do really well, then they do really, really well. But there's a huge risk in that. But the best thing I invested in actually was a media company. I usually don't do media companies. So there was a movie coming out, and this company was raising money, and it wasn't even, I invested in it, it wasn't even that I really wanted a return. I just loved the message from the movie, and I thought people needed to see that message. Right? I thought it's important. It was more of a moral thing for me. And I put some money, and I just really wanted that message to get out. And it ended up in 3 months later, I got a check, I think, for double or triple my money. And I was like, oh, wow, this is, because it's not just the amount, it's the fact in 3 months that came in. I wasn't expecting anything back. It was more so, I want this message out there. I want to support them. And then getting back. So that's, for me, the best investment. Other than that, it's not startups. I'll say it's my stock portfolio. So that has been doing really well, thanks to Ian Dunlap. I always shout him out, the master investor. Thanks to him, that has been doing really well.
Personally, I do invest in different companies, but then I never invest in startups.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I never invest in startups. So what I look into the companies that have already proven their concept. They have a good track record that I can see and verify. At least now I know my money is kind of safe. I think I'm thinking as a bank. Even if you go to a bank that you want funds, they'll obviously ask, like, okay, show us your financial transactions. How do you operate? Bring your collateral. What if I lose my money? Because there are a lot of reasons that can make you fail here in Africa. For example, we are running this podcast right now. I don't even know what time the electricity will go off. Yeah, which is crazy. So I'm always wondering, like, how do people invest in Africa? People who are not Africans. I've always been wondering about that. Like, how do you sleep at night knowing that there's some African guy who has my money?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
No, and I love the way you invest. That's the right way to invest.
Yeah.
That's the right way to invest. This is really, if you're investing in startups, it has to be a small percentage of your capital, or you're just crazy like me. It really has. So that's the best way to invest in, I think, looking at, and actually me and some of my partners, we're going to pivot into doing more of that. Looking at longer term businesses that have been running for at least 5 years, preferably at least 10 years, in non-sexy industries, so industrial, waste management, whatever, dry cleaning, whatever, mostly in the U.S., not for Africa, and based on their historical cash flows and whether we think they have a moat. So I think that's a much better way to invest. This is kind of like, it comes out of passion. There's some excitement to it. It's like, okay, there's the one business, the CEO that I'm talking about, this guy within the next, helping him from zero. By the end of next year, I think his company will be serving well over 100,000 people, maybe even 200,000 people. So there's that level of excitement, but most of it is most of it is boom. So that's not the way I would invest. If I would say for most people, I'll say don't look at startup investing. If you're going to invest in startup, I think it's much better to invest by doing sweat equity. So that's how I got in. I started my first few deals, not in Africa, but in the U.S. Some startups came to me. They wanted to pay me for some of my branding consulting services, and I said, okay, instead of you paying me, I'll take this percentage of your company. I'll do it, and then it'll scale up. So I think that's a much better way if you're, especially in Africa, if you're able to help them from a place that has stable electricity. And finally, one thing I'll say about stable electricity, something that I had to do, I didn't like the price, but I do like now that I had to get solar panels and backup power because I just, dealing with this was frustrating. Frustrating because my team has to run 12 to 16 hours a day. And there was a time where they had to run out to restaurants to keep doing it. I was like, restaurants are not going to let you just come in.
All of you.
Yeah, all of you, they're not going to let you come in. So that's something I find that's the difficulty of working in Africa, but also the ease. If somebody can bring down the cost or do mobile generators, I think that's a business that, especially people who have the dollars to spend, say, hey, you know what, if I call somebody within 15 minutes, I'll know I have electricity back up and running. That's something I think people with the earning power would pay for if they're running businesses here.
Yeah, you said that when you're investing in a startup, especially here in Africa, you're looking to get your money back in 10 years or 15 years. To me,
I would like my money back much earlier. I would like my money back next week. Yeah. And so I know I cut you. I would like my money back, but I just know that's the time frame.
So my question is, let's say you're investing and you're expecting a business to do good after 10 years. What return would you be expecting by that time?
So the least at the stage of angel, you really want to only invest in businesses that you can do at least 100x.
Okay.
Because it doesn't make sense to wait that long. Yeah. Because even in Tanzania, you have government bonds that perform pretty well, right, on loans. So you can lend out money to go and have that's pretty liquid, right? So if you're taking that level of risk and you're knowing 9 out of 10 companies may fail or fail to return capital on what you're doing, you have to have, the swings have to be big. So 100x, hopefully 1,000x, right? And knowing it might not happen, but that's when I'm looking at business, I'm looking, hey, are they shooting for 100x? Because also as somebody in the U.S., I have to think about currency devaluation, and that's runs rampant across Africa. Whether it's the Naira or other currencies, the CD, I'm not gonna pick on Nigeria because I'm from Ghana, the CD as well. If the currency is going down but the company is going up in value, all the gains you gain can actually be lost because now the money's not worth much in dollars. So I'll say typically if you're doing a startup, don't really look at a startup, something that you're locking up for 10 plus years unless you think it can do 100x. Otherwise, it's better to go with a traditional business that has stable and okay, I can at least get a distribution every year or every 2 years, every quarter, whatever.
Now I understand why you're willing to wait for 10 years. I would wait for 100x. I myself, I would take that. Yeah, in Africa, there are some habits that are being treated as normal, but they're holding us back. For example, there is a saying that says there's no hurry in Africa. It's a very normal saying, like no one moves fast, everyone is relaxed. It's because the community is how we have been programmed. Until you start traveling, start going to other countries, that's when you realize, okay, for me to keep my motion, I need to be moving fast, just like riding a bicycle. The faster you move, the better you go. So what are other bad advices that you have seen that African entrepreneurs believe that you want to debunk?
Wow, one of my pet is time, as you can tell.
Oh, pole, you mentioned that one.
Yeah, it's time. It's urgency, right? It's urgency and being precise. So one of the things that, And I will harp on that. And people always tell me, no, it's in the U.S. we call it CPT, colored people time, right? Oh no, that's fine, that's culture. They also have similar things in Latin America and whatnot. And I'm looking, most of the nations I know that do it were nations that were conquered, right? Nations that was conquered by Europeans or other civilizations. And I say, if I think time matters, because even if you have a better army or better strategy, if you're telling your regiment B to show up here at this time and meet you, and they show up 30 minutes later, you can be slaughtered, right? And business, as I said, is war. So if we're not really figuring and becoming precise on time, I think there's so many ways we lose things and we don't realize why we're losing ground over and over and over again. And time is one of the things the way you showing up on time is one of the few things you can somewhat control. It may mean you have to show up really early, but that's one of the things you can control. I think another thing is corruption, right?
Okay, yeah.
And what do I mean by corruption? So I want to be very careful in stating this, because I think when people always say corruption, they point out Africa and they state as if Africa is more corrupt than anywhere else. I think corruption exists in the U.S. I know corruption exists in the U.S. I know corruption exists in Europe. I know corruption exists in Asia. I know corruption exists in most of the major economies. What I mean by corruption, I think if we just take for granted this is how things always are, it creates a lack of systems and structures where you can always go outside of the lines. There's no actual urgency to actually get people to fall within a system that works. Because, hey, you know what? I can go out, I can skip this line. And what happens, I think, in Africa, which is different from the U.S., because the corruption happens at the highest levels. I was having this discussion with some Africans, and we're talking about corruption. In the U.S., it happens at high. So you can't go out and bribe and I'm not a fan of corruption, so this is not what I'm saying. You can't go out and bribe a police officer. You can't go out and bribe. You're going to jail. You're going straight to jail. You can't do that for the most. Now you can't do that. But you can bribe senators. You can bribe. You can bribe the highest of bureaucrats, and the way you bribe them is campaign contributions and other things, or donating to a specific nonprofit. And it's much higher dollar amounts, but you can bribe the top legally. It's not called a bribe, it's called a campaign contribution, right? So legally you can do it. However, they made it so you can't do it at the bottom, and the people at the bottom get chastised. In Africa, anybody will take it, right? Or let me not say anybody, but many people will take it, right? Many people take it, and that just creates issues so we're not actually fixing root problems. Because the people who actually have the power to solve the root problem, since they have the capital, they can go bribe themselves around the problem, and therefore they don't really care that the problem still exists. Versus if they all had to go through that pain, then they'll say, you know what, we really have to fix this, because I'm not trying to stand on this immigration line for 2 hours. That doesn't make sense, right? We should have more people here. That's the issue I think we have with corruption, and why I think we really need to stamp it out and believe we can stamp it out. And I believe, unfortunately, humans are going to be humans. So when I say stamp it, I don't mean it's going to stop. I just think also we need to stop thinking that there's no future. And people pretend like they don't think this, but I watch people's behaviors. If our leaders, and I'm not calling out any leader in particular, if our leaders really believed in a better future or promise of Africa, they would limit how much they take from the public coffers now. Why? Because if they'll believe there'll be more in the future, right? And I don't want them to do, but I just know nature. So if we can get them to say, hey, you know what, let me quote unquote sacrifice and not steal from the people for a bit of time, so we can have better roads. So we can have better ports, so we can have better buildings, we can have better police people, we can have better schools, etc. You'll see 10 or 15 years, a drastic boom in the economy. And then if they're pulling money from the thing, it doesn't hurt the people as much because there's so much more money in the thing. So I think we need to really get our leaders and people in general to believe in the future of Africa, because that makes people take quote unquote sacrifices for now, because they believe that they can get something more in the future.
You know, in most places, especially here in Tanzania, it's not about what you know, It's about who you know. That's why they're saying that most of the youth, the top thing that they're looking for is connection. What does it mean, connection? Who are you connected to be able to get a certain opportunity? Who are you connected to be able to get a job, right? So have you ever been pressured to hire someone just because of nepotism?
I think I'm blessed that I've never been pressured to hire somebody because of nepotism. I'm going to look at it in a few different ways. So that's a really good question. I'm going to look at it in a few different ways. I think there is one of the reasons things don't work is because of nepotism, right? If you're hiring people just because they're connected, you're not hiring the best quality people. So you're wondering why walls are crumbling or roads are crumbling because you don't have the best people there. So that's a huge issue. And therefore that just hurts the country, the company, the organization in the long term, right? So that's one thing, which is reason why it's bad. It's because you're putting somebody who doesn't deserve it, and it's probably making the company, country, or organization worse in the long term into an opportunity. I do think this is where I've learned to be very pragmatic with people. I don't think it should exist in government. I don't think it should exist in most nonprofits or NGOs. I understand. I've just been studying history of business, and thankfully I've never had to do this, but if somebody is coming in and they're going to, this is how I view it, and a company has to make this decision. If somebody is going in to a company because he's related to someone, and that's going to bring, let's say, 25 million more Tanzanian shillings each month to the company, right? Now, the person, you have to pay the person 2 million, 3 million shillings a month or whatever. But you're going to get 25 million shillings. I think if the company is going to utilize that money to grow the company in a way that serves the investors and the employees and the public, I'm not going to harp on that. Why? I look at that, then that's a business transaction. Everybody actually got better from adding this person. I don't love it, but I understand it from that standpoint, and I think it's better. It can make the company better. Now, the issue happens if somebody's doing it. Let's say it's usually not sometimes it's known as somebody's doing it, and they're doing it, so now they're pocketing some of the money. And the money's not being spread to the investors, it's not being spread to the owner, it's not being spread to the other employees or the community. And so it's a destruction of value, right? So if it's adding value, I can take that. It's unfortunate. That's the way the world works. That's the way the world has always worked. And I'm not going to pretend like I can change the world in certain instances, right? But I think if you're going to do that, you have to really evaluate, is this going to make the company better in the future? Is this going to help the other employees? Is this going to help us serve? Is this going to make the investors better? If it's just sucking to one person, then you start seeing things crumble, right? And that's terrible. I know this isn't something most people say. I might not be liked for it. That's fine. I want us to pragmatically solve things, and that's my goal.
Friendship and business. Most entrepreneurs, they believe that friendship and business don't go together. So what's your take on that? Have you ever tried to do business with your friends, apart from the one that stabbed you?
So I've tried to do business with friends. There was another person who stabbed me, a lawyer. I almost had to send that person to jail and get them disbarred because they stole a lot of money from the business. So I've seen that part of it, and I agree. I think when you're dealing with friends, there has to be harder discussions and very clear resolutions saying, hey, if this happens, this is going to be the response. Our friendship dies, the business dies, etc. Being very clear on that front. I'm very reticent. I would say if you're a friend, you have to be almost 2 times as good as a non-friend for me to bring you into business, right? It's just the incredible value you bring in has to be so much more, because we're going to lose a relationship. I'm much different in friendship than I am in business, right? And but I have people who I've done business with that's become friends, and that's the most beautiful thing too. Right? It's beautiful. I have people that now we're gonna celebrate their 40th birthdays. We're gonna celebrate certain things, and because it's so rare when you do business and you see somebody who's honest and trusting, Now people like welcome me. They're like, wait, this is different than everything else I've gone through. So you can create some beautiful. They're rare, and people try to take advantage of them. But that's also why I'm happy I became a lawyer. It makes things a lot different now than it was in the past. I would also say with nepotism, I know I gave that political, but with me, I've hired nobody from my family in my company. The same rule I have for friends, the same rule I have for my employees. The HR manager we had, I gave her this task when we were looking to hire some people from my family wanted to get a job here. Yeah. She was like, wait, I can really tell you this person's not good. I said, I want you. I'm going to fire you if you let me bring in somebody that's not good because they're my family. And the reason why that's so good, I believe in not bringing in family just for a job, is because if you have to take care of them anyway, it's easier to take care of them when your business is doing well. Right? Because then okay, I can give you the money, right? Versus if you mess up the business, then now it's not just you. I have to worry about all these other families that are being messed up. So I think with nepotism, I understand the pressure to hire family. I would say it's better in most cases to make sure, tell them, hey, if you're going to work with me, you have to be 2x as good as this other person. Or if you have to bring them, I would give them put them in a very small box, and they have to work their way out of that.
Let's say I give you $1,000, which in Tanzania is a lot of money. And I tell you, okay, you have to turn this into $10,000. What would you do if you are in Africa?
That's a great scenario. I would say a few things. One, is this me or is this me as anybody? Because if it's then I don't have my skills, I don't have my connections. I'm trying to think, because it's a little bit unfair. I think what we want to do for the crowd is maybe, hey, if it's them, what would they do? And give them a game plan.
Yeah.
Give somebody a game plan. Okay, so without connections. So there's about 4 major things you need to succeed in business. Succeed long-term in business or life. Analysis, right? Analysis, relationships, capital, and skills, right? 4 major things. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is, if I'm dropped into an African city, I'm going to, try to find a job or barter a way for me to just have food and a roof over my head so I can conserve my capital. Food and a roof over my head, try to put my money into, hopefully I'm not expending anything, put my money into a savings account that's getting some interest, so it's growing at that point. And then while I'm getting food and I'm working for this, maybe I'm working 12 hours a day. The other 4 hours, I'm going to spend the time trying to analyze, one, who are the wealthiest people in the city and what do they buy or need, right? 2, other than that, those are the 2 markets I'm looking at. And 2, who are the other segment of people who have disposable income? Disposable meaning they have money above what they spend on food, rent, transport, etc. They have money that they can utilize that doesn't go to bills, right? And what do they spend? What do they want? I'm going to analyze. I'm going to spend the first month, maybe month and a half, trying to analyze and figure that out. And I'm going to put it in buckets. Okay, what needs high capital cost? What has high capital cost, and what has low capital cost, and what are the profit margins? Then after that, I'm going to pick something that I think that I can train myself on and also have a moat. So I'll pick something, and it's funny, I was as on my way here, I was looking at different businesses. I'm on the side of the street and people selling things. I was thinking about, what would I win in Dar es Salaam? You're a port city, right? You're a highway, you're the artery to many other countries in that. So trade looks something, but there's a lot of competition, it seems like. There's a lot of truckers, things of that nature. Then I'm saying, okay, luxury is usually good. People want goods, etc. So when I say we're analyzing what we can do well, what we can't do, what we can compete on. Then in that time period, after I've analyzed it, I'm going to split my hours 2 and 2 for developing relationships, because it's hard to do business if you don't have relationships and nobody's vouching. Developing relationships and developing skills. Okay. And I'm going to try to pick up something that has high commissions or lots of value. So I'm going to look for a sales job in something that's selling really well already, I'm not going to try to sell something that's selling terrible. I'm going to look and see what's selling really well, but they may have expansion problems. They may have and they're looking high, and I'm going to look to sell that either to the high, that sells to the high income people, or the middle income, which has disposable income, and that's what I'm going to do. And this is not happening in 1 month. It might take 12 months or more to get there, but after you get there, the next time you'll be able to probably make $5,000 a month, make $10,000 a month once you really figure out the skill piece. That's what I'll look to do. I think trying to flip it in a short amount of time, that's usually what scammers do, or try to sell people, and it's really unrealistic. You're going to have ups and downs. You have to develop skills. You have to develop relationships. That capital, I'm trying to preserve it by putting a bank, but you still have your incoming needs. So by taking a job, you're not cutting into that 1,000, because if that 1,000 goes to zero, you're going to be in pain, right? So that's how I'm going to process that.
For you doing business in Africa, has politics slowed you down, or it has helped you to move even faster?
I think we're so small now that politics doesn't matter to us yet. We're trying to fly below the radar, so we don't have to get involved in that. But as we get bigger, so for one of the things I'm looking to, because I want to create future income for my people and kind of a retirement plan. So one of the things that I'm looking to and was supposed to do on this visit was we're going to look out to buy farmland, right, and start doing cash crops or other types of agriculture here. So some of the people can invest into it. I may put up 80%, they may put up 20% or whatever, but now we're putting money together, and then this thing will create a system, and this will continue to pay them after they retire or whatnot, or they'll get extra money on top of what they're doing. But we're seeing, I think it happened maybe because of Chinese, but I was reading stuff that now they're becoming stricter on who can buy certain types of businesses here in Tanzania. So yes, politics play a role, sometimes for better, a lot of times for worse, into things. This is also where the lesson in humility is learning. Before I came and try to have a big chest, or I want my company to be here. No, we're going to fly underneath the radar, and then when we're big enough and have good relationships, we'll maybe instead of next time the question how to pay my employees, hey, how do I get connected with this politician? How do I do this? And try to create relationships. Because at the end of the day, a lot of things come down to relationships, right? You can't, one of the reasons you see I'm not so harsh on corruption, or I'm not so hard, because you can't scream at a strong person, right? You can't scream at somebody in power. You can scream at weak people, but I don't really want, you can't scream at them. So you have to kind of talk with them and create a relationship and try to nudge them to do something that you think is better for the country or better for your company, and just have that relationship to influence them, rather than, unless you're just a bigger, strong person, which some countries have done, but then you become hated, and if you don't continue to hold a big stick, once they get a big stick, they're going to beat you down. So I think one of the best things to do is obviously follow all the rules and regulations that you can, but fly under the radar as much as possible. Be careful what you try to make a big deal, at least unless you're really big enough to actually make that fight.
So I'll take you back to the startups that you said you're investing in. What has been the craziest pitch that you've ever received from a startup founder?
So that's a good, I don't know if I've received a crazy pitch. I don't know if I've received a crazy pitch. I would say one of the things that you see some people really, really out there, like on the edge of the future or on the edge of reality, right? You'll see people pitching decentralized finance, or people pitching, so it wasn't a pitch I saw, it was, I guess it's a kind of a pitch. I saw this company, this is actually when I was in Japan for the World Expo. I saw this company, health tech company, they're essentially trying to do remote surgeries, right? Remote robotic surgery. So they're trying to create like this flying remote vehicle that will land in some place, have robotic arms where somebody will go. This is 2030. This is not soon. Where somebody will go in there and the surgeons will be able to operate from anywhere in the world on the person, which I think is amazing. But other than that, you just see people. The ones that I was recently pitched this. Once they create people trying to beat Uber or Bolt, right? And I call that crazy. The reason I call it crazy, the margins are really tough in that business, right? Regulation's tough too. Depending on what country you're in, some countries are killing cab drivers, right? So there's a lot going on there. So I think when I say it's crazy, it's me more seeing crazy from like, I don't think that business model is going to work. And I know it may seem like this is a huge problem, but unfortunately there's not enough money there or infrastructure for this to work.
You previously said that you have a plan of impacting 1 billion people. I want to know, how are you planning on doing that?
So I'll say it's more of a goal than a plan. Like I have pieces of the plan and it's kind of like walking on water. I'm trying to trust each next step and I'm seeing more of the path open up for each next step. So one of the ways that I see that happen is really being able to advise, consult, and help build leaders. So I think the thing that Africa and the world needs is great leaders and pioneers. So I differentiate a leader from a pioneer. A pioneer is somebody who's able to create a new path, right? They're the person who figured this is the way to get to Zanzibar, right? This is the way to get to Arusha. They figured it out. This is the way to go. Nobody gave them they kind of figured out the way to go. A leader is somebody who says, okay, now this is the best way to get other people there, right? And they're two different personalities. Both are, but we need pioneers and we need leaders. And I think that's something that if we can create more pioneers, because if AI really takes away 40 to 60% of jobs, and we already have an unemployment rate which is over 50%, what's going to happen here if we don't have pioneers that's creating new jobs? So we need that. But leaders, imagine, and I'm not going to say any country, but imagine if Africa in general just had much better and effective leadership, right? From both a sacrifice standpoint and also execution standpoint. Imagine if you were going down and you saw beautiful highways, beautiful ports. The schools were proper, like top-notch teachers. You would think that you're in Wakanda, right? With all the resources we have. So if we're able to really empower leaders and show them, okay, this is a better way to execute. This is how to motivate your people. This is how to drive them. This is how to create incentives. This is how to create structure. Because I think in Africa and also in Black America, we have amazing charisma. We have amazing ideas. It's just structure and execution, right? And that's what Europe was really good at. They were able to create structures and systems and rip out resources, right? Or build around resources. And I think in many ways, because we were so resource rich, we didn't really have to, we have some civilizations that created amazing systems, but we didn't really have as many like well-functioning systems across the board, across history. And especially at the time where people came for the slave trade and other things. So if we can really show our leaders how to create the right systems, to create the right structures to build their people with the resources that are in Africa, oh my goodness. I think that it won't be crazy to say that we're going to have a Wakanda city on the continent.
So what's the best piece of advice that you would like to leave to our audience who are looking to make their own destinies?
Yeah, for me, it's simple in many ways. For me, it's just trust God.
Okay.
Just trust God, man. There's so many plans that we make as humans. Something we have strengths or we have weaknesses. God really covers destinies. And there was a quote that Abraham Lincoln, one of the foremost presidents of the U.S., said to somebody, or was quoted saying, somebody said when they were fighting the Civil War, let's pray that God is on our side. And Abraham Lincoln said to this person, no, let's pray that we're on God's side, because then we'll definitely win. So that's the bet. Everything I've said, everything I've learned, it all stems from God. And he covers up my mistakes and he brings me to higher levels. Other than that, work hard. And I think one of Africa's biggest strengths is your ability to collaborate. I know we talked a lot about working with friends, but at the beginning, go start something. You all may break out later, but start something, get the skill, and then break out. Work together. Don't be poor alone. Work together, collaborate, and I think the sky is not a limit for you. It'll be the floor.
So guys, I'll put all details of Achumboro where you can find him. You can go and message him, ask him to come back for part 2, because he has businesses in Tanzania, and since we didn't talk about a lot, maybe we can be doing this every year. Whenever you come here, we'll be doing another podcast. So
That would be great.
if you'd want Achumboro to come back for part 2, just comment down below. Let me know what you have loved from whatever he has talked about, and if you want him back, just don't hesitate to say it. And with that being said, see you on the next episode.